of How to Speak Maintenance. I'm excited. We took last month off and we're back again, but I'm excited to start off this conversation. So my name is Jason Fein. I'm the VP of Maintenance at Dominium. And with me, as always, is Becca Ramati, who's the Vice President of the Texas Apartment Association Education Foundation. So good afternoon, Becca.
Hi, Jason.
And today I wanted to sit down and I want to bring a guest on to share their thoughts on emergency maintenance protocols and how they set their communities up in teams to be better prepared for emergency situations, especially hurricanes and all the stuff that we work through in Texas. So joining us today is Josè Patiño at RPM Living. So thank you for joining us, Josè.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
Yeah. Would you mind telling us about yourself, how long you've been in the industry, and what you do
Sure.
for RPM Living?
I started on site about 25 years ago. I don't like to show my age, but it's been a little while. My current role is a senior regional facilities manager for RPM Living. I currently have about 32 properties in my portfolio. They range from San Marcos down to Corpus Christi, with my base being San Antonio. And yeah, I love what I do. Been doing this for a while.
Man, your role, I'm sure you've seen a lot of your role and your experience, how long you've been in the industry. I'm sure you've seen a lot of emergencies. So I'm sure you're going to have a lot of meat and potatoes for our call today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Josè, we can hear you just fine. You're a little pixelated. It almost looks like we've protected your identity for FBI purposes, but keep going. You sound great, and this is going to be a fantastic conversation.
Well, with all the hurricanes, dust storms, freezing weather that we all go through on a regular, year in Texas, it's imperative that our properties are prepared and our teams are equipped with the information they need to make sure the community is ready. I'm sure that with your experience, like we just said, you're going to add a ton of value. So getting into it, my first question for you is, what types of emergency protocols do you have at RPM Living, and where are they housed at?
So we have actual hard copies. We have something in our company called an emergency preparedness plan. It's a binder that has a whole myriad of situations that we can encounter on a property. A couple examples would be maybe an active shooter, a bomb threat, fire, things like that. And it gives them instructions on what you guys should be doing. They will create evacuation plans. Everyone has to have a property site map that identifies all of the water shutoffs, and that is posted in the office, so that in the event that the staff can't get to the property and someone else has to come, it makes it very simple to figure out where the water shutoffs are, where my meters are, the gas cutoffs and things like that. And then for like hurricanes and storms, when they come, we monitor them very closely, and we will send out emails to the markets that we feel will be impacted by those storms. It's a generic thing that we send out that's pretty encompasses a lot, but there are a couple properties that maybe have a one-off that we need to address. If they have a low-lying lift station, for example, we want to make sure that area is really cleaned out, that's not going to get flooded. Just things like that we'll reach out to a property specifically if they have a one-off that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, earlier when we were chatting, you were saying that you feel like a weatherman.
Yeah, I am. We monitor very closely. For those of you in the Texas region, I know we had a hurricane that came through and made landfall over by Houston. Well, we had anticipated it coming to Corpus, which is one of my markets. So we did prepare the teams, sandbags, water, flashlights, batteries, things like that on hand. And they have them, but luckily for them, the storm kind of took a turn and didn't impact them. But now they're just prepared for the inevitable hurricane season around the corner that impacts so many of us.
Yeah, no, you were saying that somebody really smart set up that program with all the different scenarios.
Yeah.
This is a new question I wanted to ask you. So you brought up the emergency preparedness plan. Do you train with the on-site teams and make sure that they're reviewing the different sections? I think you mentioned that before our call too.
Yeah, so the emergency prepared, this thing is phenomenal. Like you said, someone much smarter than me put this together and did a great job of it. It does encompass a whole lot of things. We tell the teams on a weekly basis that we want them to pull an emergency out of there and do a mock emergency. So if the office opens at 9, say 8:30, they're getting together, they're going to do a little morning huddle. They're going to sit around and they're going to start talking. Okay, you have an emergency, we'll take a fire, for example. If the leasing agent gets a phone call at 10:30 in the morning for a fire, what is her role? How does she distribute that information and get everyone else on board? But then also being mindful that that plan at 10 a.m. on a Monday will not work at 10 p.m. on a Monday. So the person on call has to have the presence to say, okay, my role is to call, if it's not the service manager, the service manager. He's going to call the manager while I call the tech, or however that plays out. And then for me, I on my site visits, I visit all of my properties monthly. So when I come to visit, I will ask them, what kind of emergencies did you guys go over this month? And whatever answers they give me, okay, and I'll go sit with the leasing agent or the assistant, and I just recreate the scenario. That you just got a call for an active shooter, or you just got a call that there's a body was discovered in a unit, or whatever the situation may be. And I'm just looking for them to be able to give me an idea of what their role is. Much like the police and the government and everyone else, the repetition, going over these emergencies over and over again is how they will stay calm in the emergency situation and be able to work on it effectively and efficiently and calmly, which is, the big one.
So Jose, how do you protect that time for the teams to go over this stuff? It's so easy for things to pop up and you have to deal with this and that and the other. Are there things that you do to help them kind of understand the importance of it or just protect that time?
So I think that time is, our teams do a really good job of knowing that they have to have these conversations before the office starts. So they're already accustomed to having a morning huddle where they get with sometimes the morning huddle is not the whole team. Let's be honest. You have make readies, you have move-ins, emergencies that come up. The morning huddle may be a manager and a service manager for that day getting together to go over the game plan. But they do make time throughout the week to say, okay, the whole team is going to get together. This is what we're going to discuss today. We have a safety meeting that they will do. For example, in our company, we have something called Fuse, which I guess I would equate it to kind of Facebook for us. We put a bunch of topics and informations, and it's a resource that they can always go to pull up any forms or any inspections that may be coming up. A lot of information lives there that they can readily access. So they can pull these safety meetings out of there. For example, a ladder safety. That's a 15-minute little paper that they go through, and they talk about heights and opening ladders and the importance of checking the safety, making sure. Once that little safety wraps up, then we're going to spend 20 or 30 minutes, 15 minutes, if that's all we have this week, to talk about an emergency and to try to commit some time to that. I think that since they know I'm coming around to visit and ask questions, they do a pretty good job of not getting caught with their pants down, so to speak.
That's good. One of the things that we were talking about earlier, you were mentioning that before a storm, you guys get together and you have these meetings. Like what are you guys discussing in those meetings? And then you're saying that you have a checklist that goes out to the properties to get them ready for that hurricane. And you were saying it's generic. What do you do about the specific things? For example, if one of the properties has floodgates and you got to make sure that the floodgates are ready, like what do you guys do about that?
Excuse me. So the generic one is basically making sure that we have, like I said, the emergency shutoffs are posted, that we have first aid kits, batteries, bottled water. If we're expecting storm surge or flooding, we want to get sandbags and things like that. If I know for sure that one particular property that is in this danger zone, so to speak, has a floodgate, I will reach out to my service manager or my team directly via phone to talk to them to see where we're at, if this has already been completed. And then I usually just always best practice to just follow up with an email to make sure that it's in writing And then I make sure that they respond to that, acknowledging that, yes, things have been done and we are prepared as best we can be for the storm.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? If you get a new service manager, you send them a generic list. They might not know that they have a storm water system they have to check, or they don't know
We
what's going to flood. So
we make it a point for my team, the facilities team, to visit these properties and sit with these newer team members when they come aboard, especially the service managers when they pick up a new property. So generally speaking, when you start in my portfolio, you're going to get a visit from me within 2 to 3 days. I try to be there the day after because that first day is kind of training and sitting on the computer. So I'm going to let you do that. The second day, I will walk the property with you. I'll talk to you about what I noticed historically. If you have a property, for example, that has exterior washers and dryers, and you know that they freeze and cause pipe bursting, we need to make sure that before these freezing and temperatures drop, we're going through making sure that all of these patio doors latch, secure, are locked. We're putting notices out to the residents not to utilize this facility, the laundry, while the temperatures are so low. And I even go through, because we all know how well sometimes residents listen, is we'll have the maintenance, we have the double doors where they're open. So the maintenance will actually put a sign that covers both doors that says do not open. And they'll go through and we'll walk the whole property to check. That's on top of, turning your heat up in your make readies and your vacant units, walking the units. When the temperatures are sub-zero, we walk them daily. We want to make sure that nothing has happened in these units, no pipe bursts and things of that nature. And then having your vendors on hand is just huge. Having plumbers and water extraction vendors ready to go is crucial. And not only reaching out to them before the storm, but having more than one there. So my best practices for my teams is a minimum of 2. So I want a minimum of 2 plumbers, a minimum of 2 electricians, carpet, water extraction, things like that. So that in the event that one does get booked up because maybe the whole city is going through this storm, then you have other avenues, at least 1 or 2 other vendors to reach out to for support. And they should also be touching base with these vendors before the storms come in. Hey, I just wanted to make sure you have us on your list. We're going to be calling you first if we get emergencies, and that communication. The other big one is the sprinklers and having your fire sprinkler people ready to go.
that's great. It sounds like you guys are definitely like the guardian angels of the property, right? You got a lot of stuff floating around. You're trying to make sure that the properties are ready for these events. So
Yeah, we try to. I know that my on-site teams deal with a lot in the day-to-day. So if I'm able to step in and kind of get a bigger picture and help them out with that stuff while they focus on a little bit of the more mundane things, it really helps the teams out and our clients as well. We want to protect the asset. We want to protect our teams and our residents for sure.
Jose, after a weather episode or an emergency, is there a process that you have to go through and make edits as needed based on what happened in that case to the bigger, the Bible of emergency preparedness? And how do you make sure that happens again, just when there are so many things going on?
Yes, ma'am. We have teams channels that are created for the properties, and they will create Excel spreadsheets and upload them that, if, for example, the storm comes and you have 5 or 6 units that were flooded, they will update that tracker and let us know where they're at with them. After a major storm, we reach in and we assist in whatever we can. I will come to the property. I will send other team members if that's what we need. I will help coordinate other vendors if we need extra help. And in the event that it's a citywide, we're able to pull vendors from other markets due to the size of our company readily. So I can reach out to a plumbing company or an electrician from Austin to come out and help out because we do build these connections in other markets. So basically after those storms, it's all hands on deck. The teams, the managers, our expectations of them is that they track their damages in teams so that all of us as leadership is able to access that information and relay it onto the client or help them coordinate to make sure that it's being done efficiently. So that's kind of what we how we take it on.
I love the idea of the after the storm debrief, trying to figure out best practices and learning how the building interacted with that storm and what we need to do to be better prepared. So that's amazing. Sound like you guys have a lot of meetings.
Yeah, they're great. But you bring up an excellent point because they really do. We had a couple clients here in San Antonio after the big freeze that we had a few years back, where they had a substantial amount of flooding from the exterior washers and dryers. So they opted to put in heaters into these rooms. That was the advice that we gave them to try to keep the room warm. And they held up pretty well last winter. I know we had a kind of a milder winter last year, but those are the kind of things that we're able to say after this storm, take the data to say, hey, here's what we saw, here's what we can help to mitigate this and make it less of an impact next year, or if the storm, if we go through this again. So yeah, having that data and these meetings it is important to be able to get the clients the information that they need to protect their assets a little bit better.
Well, that's you bring up a good point too. I mean, if you're a fee management property management company, you're trying to convince the owners, right, that let's
Absolutely.
invest these capital dollars to be able to freeze proof our properties in the future. So having the data and being able to go to the owners and say, hey, like this is how much money we spend on repairs. This is the permanent fix. This is how much it would cost. I think that it pays dividends later.
Yeah, having those numbers and that facts makes it very easy for you as my client to say, okay, well, we spend $60,000 in mitigation. For 50, we can fix the problem. That's, I mean, it makes it very easy to have for them to at least agree with us anyway.
Definitely. Becca, have you seen any questions from the listeners?
I haven't seen any questions yet. Um, I have a question though. I mean, how does preventative maintenance play into the emergency preparedness plan? And I'm sure there's some links there that either of you could answer.
Yeah, sure. We do have extensive logs and preventative maintenance that are in our company. There's logs as far as, your pool logs and your refrigerant logs that almost everybody keeps. But we also have a golf cart log where once a month they're going through and testing all the brakes and the steering and everything else associated with the golf carts. They're going through and they're checking ladder inspections. We do light checks once a week. All of these measures help mitigate bigger problems down the road. The light checks is huge for safety, for resident safety, right? I mean, I don't want to come park my car and then have to walk dark or have my wife or my daughter walk across when it's very dark. It's just not safe. So we want everyone to feel safe. We want them to feel at home. And the lighting is a really big one for me. The other preventative maintenance that we do is once a quarter, we do filter checks. So I go through and create a preventative maintenance plan for each one of my properties, depending on their size. I try my best to make it bite-sized pieces so that if they do get short-staffed, they are still able to maintain my schedule. So I'll give you an example. If you have 12 buildings, I'm going to come and tell you that once a week, you're going to do one building. You're going to do the filters in that building. So if you're shorthanded, if you got two guys that are down, you're still able to do one breezeway on Tuesday and one breezeway on Wednesday. And that doesn't take up too much of your time throughout the day. And you're still able to get your preventative maintenance. And we take that time to, yes, we're coming in to change your smoke, your filter, your AC filter, but we're also asking if there's anything that you have pending, any major issues. We take that time to document any pets that may not be on the lease, and we get that information to the office as well. So just trying to put eyes on everything. We do the smoke detectors and CO detector batteries once a year. And once a year, we do what's called a unit inspection, which is a more in-depth walk of the unit. It's a little bit more time consuming. We go through and check condition of all appliances, flooring, walls. At that point, we're actually opening cabinets and looking for leaks. It's more searching for problems at that point, as opposed to the other visits that are kind of just the preventative for the AC filters and things like that. And I mean, I could go on and on about the preventative maintenance stuff. There's exterior condenser cleans, and there's pressure washing, and there's a whole list of things that we come through and we create the schedule. And our schedule works in a perfect world. So we have to be able to move that around and adjust it accordingly, depending on the property's needs and the team's needs.
Yeah, that's great.
Because nothing's ever perfect in property management, right?
I would be shocked if something went according to plan.
Right.
I'm still waiting for that perfect week to be able to go, work on projects. That's one of the things that kind of keeps our teams from working on those preventative maintenance tasks, right? Because they have tickets and turns and emergencies and people on vacation, or they have openings on their team. So
Yeah.
that can definitely hamper their ability to be able to go complete these things. But when you just earmark it on the calendar and say, this is the week, we're going to do it. We're going to do it in the morning from 8 until 11, and then we're going to go to lunch and then do tickets and turns the rest of the day. Then it gets done. So,
and that's why I feel it's so important to break these up into small pieces, just because so many things happen. Yeah. I mean, in a perfect world, you would say, yeah, okay, we're doing all the filters today and tomorrow and we're done. But that's just not how our world operates. So try as you may, property management gods have other plans.
This is a great conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh yeah, you're going to come on more. So
yeah, give me a call.
One of the things we always like to do before we close up is ask you just a question, so you can kind of talk about these different topics at the end. But if you could say what your favorite part about property management is and the industry, what would that be?
I am a fixer by nature, so I enjoy fixing people's problems, and I find it very rewarding. I deal with, I don't view this as a job. I really am working on people's homes. That's how I take it. So I find it just very rewarding to be able to come in when someone's been struggling with a problem. My favorite is when they've been struggling with an ongoing problem. I like those harder challenges, and just to be able to walk away with a solution and put their mind at ease over something. There's a couple phrases that I absolutely love in maintenance. One of my favorites is when you show up and the resident says, "I didn't expect you here so quick." Oh, I love that one. That's one of my favorites. That's when you can usually ask them for a review. So if any of your listeners out there are service managers and you hear that from your resident, you have them on the hook. Give them your name, tell them you want them to put in a review. More than likely, you'll get it out of them. So yeah, I mean, the other thing that I love about the industry is not just helping, it's the ever-changing part of it. I can do electrical work in the morning, and then an HVAC before lunch, and then in the afternoon, a plumbing issue. And so that always changing part of my day is what I like, and keeps me going. I don't think I could just sit behind a desk all day. And most maintenance guys, they want to go. We want, where's my tools? I got stuff to do. I got stuff to fix.
Yep. No, you couldn't have said it any better. That's exactly the same words I would have said if I was asked that question. So.
And then Jose, before we go, if there's 3 things you think people listening should be thinking about in terms of, emergency preparedness, what are your top 3 things that people should be doing ahead of, what could be a busy season?
Sure. So the very first thing that everybody should do, if you don't already have one, is have a site map that identifies all of your building shutoffs, your main property shutoff, your irrigation main shutoff, if you have any gas on your property, if you have riser rooms on your property, where your meters are. You should color code that and have it very plain visible. Whenever you're dealing with emergencies, you have to remember that not everyone reacts to an emergency calm, cool, and collected. So we want to make things that are very easy to read, very quick to pick up. So for example, if you're doing the water shutoff, you may mark that blue and the marker, so that I look at that map, I can see the blue spots. I can look up into the corner, see the legend, and know that's the blue. My green, that's the irrigation main cutoff in case I had a leak. Just different colors that you can do. And then having emergency vendors and a list ready to go, and not one that lives on a cell phone, but an actual paper copy that's up. I know a lot of times we get wrapped up with technology. I'm old. I like paper copies. I like my make ready boards up on the board so anyone can see it. So I think that having the contact list and the emergency map posted in your office has it visually right there, so that if you don't have, cell phones broke or whatever the case may be, you're still able to get that information and go do what you need to do. And then lastly would be trying to put some type of emergency preparedness plan together. If you have a fire in a building, what are you going to do? Where are you going to move these people to? And it's very important that everyone understands that when we create an evacuation plan, excuse me, be mindful of the property as a whole. If I have a fence or wooded area in the back of my property, it's not a good idea for me to evacuate residents towards the back of the property, because you have to be thinking in terms of secondary evacuation or potential complete evacuation, so that if that fire spreads, if that active shooter gets out and about, we want to be able to tell them, move them to the front. And then if you have to move them again, you can move them out. And that way, no one's going to be trapped at the back of your property. And then lastly, I would say that all of this information is great to have, but if you do not practice it, it's not worth anything. So having all of this information in your office is fine, but if your team doesn't know how to read it, how to access it, how to go over the information, it really is just paper on the wall. So taking the time to go with your teams and go over this information is absolutely crucial to your success in an emergency situation. And those teams that I know that are successful and stay calm are teams that practice this just all the time. So that would be my advice for emergencies.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us. Our time looks like it's all up, so we're going to wrap things up. Thanks again for joining us, Jose.
It's been my pleasure. It's a great conversation.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've got some more topics, and we'll be definitely in contact with you to set you up so you can get on the call with us again.
I look forward to it.
But for those out there listening, if you want to listen to this podcast on the go, it's available on Facebook and LinkedIn, as well as anywhere you download your podcasts. So thanks again, Becca, for your time. Thanks,
Sure.
Jose, and I look forward to another call of How to Speak Maintenance.
We'll be back with our next episode on September 25th. So we'll see you then. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Bye.